Hey folks, today we're reading Reddit's most horrifying stalker stories. Let's begin. Chick-fil-A Stalker. Hi all, I recently found this subreddit and thought it would be the perfect place to share a frightening stalker experience I had when I was in college. This was particularly traumatizing for me as I had just started to recover from 8 years of sexual abuse from the ages of 5 to 13 at the hands of my aunt's husband. This happened back in 2012. I had recently graduated from high school and was attending community college to save some money. In October, I was hired as a team member at a Chick-fil-A located about 3 minutes from my house. In the same plaza, there were other businesses, including a Burlington coat factory my mom and I would occasionally shop at. I worked from 5:30 a.m. to 2 p.m., and in the weeks following, I started to get to know some of the morning regulars who would serve frequently. Most of them were very kind, just stopping by for their morning caffeine fix. One of the regulars we had was a pair of gentlemen that would stop a couple of times a week in the morning together. One of them was older and very polite. The other was a short, balding man that always gave me the creeps when he came in. His name was Esteban. After a while, I started to notice that Esteban would come in more frequently, by himself, and only order a small black coffee. On one visit, while I was at the register, he mentioned that he worked at the Burlington in the plaza. He also very casually threw in that I looked very familiar to him and he must have seen me shopping there. He offered up his personal discount if I ever wanted something special. Although I found his comment a little disconcerting, it wasn't all too out of the ordinary for someone to recognize a customer elsewhere, especially since both businesses were in the same plaza, or so I thought. I continued to serve him his coffee with a small smile and pushed it out of my mind, but decided to avoid shopping at Burlington from then on. As the months progressed, Esteban continued to come in almost every morning. Some of my coworkers started to tease me about my quote-unquote boyfriend who would come in and ask for me specifically, by name. When I wasn't there, he would be rather upset and wouldn't order anything, they said. After I heard those comments, I began to feel very uneasy. My mom does not drive, and one afternoon, she asked me to take her to Burlington to shop for some gifts as she was flying to visit family back into Honduras. She usually managed to find a good bargain there. I felt my stomach knot. I silently hoped and prayed on our quick drive that Esteban would be nowhere in sight. As we looked through the racks, my mom decided to go her own way and we eventually separated. While I looked through the junior section, I had a gnawing feeling that someone was watching me. Each time I would look over my shoulder, there was no one there. I was feeling very silly until I needed to use the restroom. I walked down past the sheets and comforters to the small, dingy hallway leading to the restrooms with no one else in sight. As I exited after doing my business and rounded a corner, I froze. Esteban was not so conspicuously organizing some comforter sets about 10 feet in front of me with his back half turned. I had seen him, but I wasn't sure if he had caught a glimpse of me yet. I quickly darted in the opposite direction to avoid any interaction with him and hurried back to my mom. She was ready to check out, and we left. I had 2 days of class after that incident, and after leaving class early one day, I decided to stop by the mall on my way home to pick up a birthday gift for my dad. As I walked towards the JCPenney I was there to shop at, I happened to look up from my phone and realized Esteban was leaning up against the railing directly ahead of me, watching intently as I walked closer, stalking me with his eyes like prey. I averted my gaze and made a beeline for the Victoria's Secret just a few feet past him. I thought there was no possible way he could have followed me there. I was very wrong. Esteban pushed off from the railing and tailed me through the store. I stopped to look through some items and watched him from the corner of my eye. He was toying with a pair of lazy panties, watching to make sure I didn't leave his sight. That's when it dawned on me. This man had followed me from campus to the mall. He knew I had left early and had tracked me the entire time. I picked something absent-mindedly, trying to push down the paralyzing fear I felt, and headed to the register. He followed suit but was cut off by another customer who managed to get in line behind me before he caught up. Since there were line dividers in place, he couldn't leave the line. I paid hastily and bolted out of the store, running as fast as I could away from Victoria's Secret, and hid for over an hour in the Sears on the opposite end of the mall. I was terrified of leaving and finding him outside another store. I finally picked up enough courage to tell an associate what had happened, and he offered to call security. The security guard escorted me back to my car, and I drove home staring into my rearview mirror for any sign that he could be following me. I had to work the next morning, and without missing a beat, Esteban came in for his morning coffee. He was not happy. His face was contorted into a dark, angry scowl. Luckily, I was filling our ice buckets in the kitchen area behind the counter. I could see him through the small window in the door, craning his neck over the registers, trying to find me, muttering under his breath. I felt hot tears welling up in my eyes, and I slid down the wall to the floor. My morning manager, my now husband, noticed my distress and came over to me, asking if I wasn't feeling well. I couldn't hold it any longer. Through childlike sobs, I unloaded on him everything that had happened with Esteban over the past few months. He looked very concerned and told me to wait in the office while he made a call. When he came back sometime later, the restaurant owner was with him. They had called the police and made it very clear to Esteban that he wasn't welcome in the restaurant any longer due to several complaints of harassment from multiple female employees. He tried to come in a few times after that and was met with my husband at the door, telling him very forcefully to leave or he would call the cops again. With the help of the officer that responded, I filed a restraining order against him and had not seen him since then. We still live in the same area, and I absolutely refused to shop at the Burlington where he worked. So, Esteban, let's not meet ever again. Someone who looks just like me is stalking me. I got off work at around 10 p.m. and headed home. I live alone and always make sure my front door is locked before I leave for work. But when I got home, the door was unlocked. I knew for a fact I locked it when I left because, like I stated, I always lock it. I also have severe obsessive-compulsive disorder and would not have forgotten to lock my door, as I am too obsessed with my routine to forget. I was thoroughly unsettled by this and immediately retrieved my 9mm pistol from the drawer next to my front door. I set the bag of fast food I had picked up down and looked around the dark living room, fumbling for the light switch. Once the light flicked on, to my utter horror, my apartment was in complete disarray. Paperwork strewn all over the floor that had been put away in my office, and my social security card and birth certificate were among the mess. I quickly made my way to my office, and once I entered the room, I found all the drawers were open and my computer had been turned on and was on the lock screen, as if someone had tried to get into my computer. I checked the rest of my apartment and didn't find anybody. I put my gun back and immediately phoned the police. They arrived fairly quickly and took a report of the break-in. They asked me if I had any enemies or if I had made anyone mad recently, to which I responded that I haven't. No such thing had occurred, and furthermore, I am not the type to make quarrels with people. I was quite dumbstruck by what I had come home to. I cleaned up the mess and attempted to sleep, but tossed and turned most of the night while laying with my gun under my pillow. I would like to add that I'm also a very paranoid person, so the whole thing naturally had me freaked out, and every night I go to bed, I have my gun under my pillow. The next day I had off, so I left to go hiking with my girlfriend. We started dating 6 months ago. I left around 9 a.m. and stopped by the Starbucks next to my apartment. While I sat in a busy drive-through lane, I looked up and noticed a man staring at me from across the street on the same side as my apartment complex. The thing that was most interesting about this man was how much of a resemblance to me he bared. This guy had the same hair as me, was about the same height and weight, wore glasses like me, and looked to be about the same age as me too. He didn't appear to have any expression on his face and just stood there still as a statue, staring at me. It was my turn to get my order, so I grabbed my coffee, and when I went to pull out of the drive-thru, the man was gone. The day went as planned. My girlfriend and I had a great day together. I told her about the incident at my apartment and the man who looked like me, and she joked that perhaps my doppelganger had broken into my apartment. After I parted ways with my girlfriend, I made my way home. I was a little bit nervous to return home, fearing whoever had broken into my apartment might have returned. Whatever they were there for that night, they seemed to be looking for something. I arrived back at my apartment and made my way to my apartment unit. I live upstairs, and as I approached the stairs to my front door, I heard someone coming down the stairs. I was still a good distance from the stairwell and was alarmed as I didn't have a neighbor that lived upstairs, therefore no one should have been coming down those stairs. I stopped to see who it was, and to my shock, it was none other than the same man I had earlier seen that morning. He walked quickly and looked down as he walked. I shouted at him to stop, but as soon as he heard me, he took off running and hopped the fence that separates the apartment complex from a large field and disappeared into the night. I ran upstairs to my apartment and tried a doorknob, which was once again unlocked. I went inside and was horrified. All over the walls in my living room were pictures of me and my girlfriend from that day. Pictures that look as if they had been taken right there from the tree line next to the trail her and I were on. I once again called the police to report the break-in. They came and searched the apartment as well as the entire complex. I told them about the man I had seen running into the field. They searched the field and returned with a pair of eyeglasses and a wig. The police took the items they found into evidence and opened the case. They stationed 2 police cars outside my apartment and informed the apartment manager about what was going on. It's been almost a week since this all started and nothing else has happened since. No more random break-ins or creepy photos of me and my girlfriend. I've also been staying with a coworker of mine until things die down. I have no idea why whoever is doing this is targeting me. Based on the items the police found in the field, my guess is this person is actually pretending to be me for some odd reason. I don't know what any of this means. I'll be sure to give an update if anything else happens. Update. I just returned to my apartment and everything is how I left it when I left it. The door was locked and everything is fine. I feel relieved and I'm hoping this nightmare is over. I only have one small lead that I'd like to share. I texted my old friend to ask him if he knows anything, and he sent back laughing emojis, then blocked me. This is normal behavior for him, however, as he has a mental health issue and acts erratic at times. Once again, we'll update you guys if anything else occurs. P.S. I will also provide a thorough explanation to answer everyone's doubts about my experience. That was expected once I feel it is safe to do so. In the meantime, I'll do my best to reply to additional comments, if you guys have any. Update. So I've been home since my last update, and yesterday I got home from work and met Mike. I parked my car in my usual spot and got out, and was greeted by a younger guy around 19, maybe 20 years old. He introduced himself as the new maintenance guy and told me his name was Mike. This morning, I walked out of my car to notice Mike staring at me with a completely blank expression. He just stared at me and never once appeared to blink. I went about my day thinking nothing else of it. When I got home from work, I pulled into my parking space and made my way to my apartment, only to see Mike literally walking out of my front door and locking it behind him. I was confused by this, but not alarmed, as I knew he worked at the complex. As he turned around to look at me, he just smiled. "Oh, hello. I left you an email informing you that your smoke alarm was going off rapidly and wouldn't stop, so due to constant complaints, I was permitted to briefly enter your unit to fix the alarm," Mike said in a polite but robotic tone. I was skeptical immediately because of the fact that they didn't wait for me to come home to enter, which they are supposed to do. Due to my constant paranoia, I cannot help but fear that something else is going on. I don't know what to really make of this. I'm definitely going to the apartment manager on Monday to discuss this with her. Update. Today, I got off work around 4 and stopped by a local diner to go get some pancakes. The waiter came and took my order and went back inside. This place is doing outdoor dining due to COVID-19, and I was sitting at a table closest to the entrance. I was just sitting there at my table reading an email, when all of a sudden I felt something scalding hot hit the side of my face. It was a latte from Starbucks. As I screamed in pain and jumped up from my seat, I was met with a man with a short hair and glasses. He smiled at me and he quickly walked away. The waiter witnessed the whole thing and offered to call the police, but I told him not to worry about it. I know exactly who's doing all of this now. The man who threw the latte at me is the same man who has been stalking me. He was waiting for me outside. I remember working the night shift the other night at a local McDonald's. I had to fill in for my friend Kira, who called in sick. This night was probably one of the most terrifying nights I have ever worked. It was dead around 11 p.m. as I was asked by manager to sweep the floors until a customer came in. One customer came in and he looked a bit rough. Bald, long, rusty beard, glasses, sandals, and just clothes that had stains on them. I go over to the register and say, "Hello, can I get you anything?" He said, "Yes, can I have a large coffee, please?" I take his order and give him his coffee. I tell him, "Have a wonderful night, sir," and he smiles. I go to sweep the floor again as I see this man sitting a bit close to where I would be sweeping, which is usually under the tables and just around the floor. When I reach this table, he says, "You're very beautiful." I smile and say, "Thank you very much." He says, "Can I give you a ride home when you get off work?" I say, "No, thank you, I have a ride home." He became the opposite of the nice man that I took the order from to just pure rude. He tells me, "What's your schedule?" I said, "I'm not allowed to give that information out, sorry." He takes his coffee and goes back outside. The next night after that, Kira and I worked together and my other guy friend Jack, and I told Kira about the guy from the night before, and she gave me a weird facial expression. Jack comes over to me and says, "Monica, is everything okay?" I tell him about the guy from that night before, and he gave me the look of terror. When he said to me, ran chills down my spine. Jack said, "That man called the restaurant earlier and asked about you." My blood ran cold as I saw the man walk back into the restaurant. Kira's face went pale and Jack's jaw was dropped. My stomach turned in knots as I say, "Hello, can I get you anything tonight?" He says, "No, but can I take you home?" Jack steps out and says, "No, she ain't going anywhere with you. Get out of here before I call the cops." The manager got pissed off at Jack for leaving his position as a drive-thru window, while Kira was frying burgers. Jack agreed to switch positions with me until the morning crew came in. The manager asked me to take the trash outside. I nervously said okay. Jack, on the other hand, was pissed that the manager asked me to do it. Jack was nice enough to take it from me. I stayed by inside, and Jack comes in and pulls me to the janitor's closet and says, "That guy was waiting for you in his truck with 5 other big guys in there." I felt sick to my stomach when he said that. Jack informs from the manager, and the manager, like the effing a-hole that she was, says he's not going to hurt anyone. He's harmless. Get back to work. The next morning, me and Jack work together, and my other co-worker, Taylor, informs me that the man has come back and told her my schedule, and he will wait for me to come back in today. I got sick of it till I saw him come in. Jack, being the good friend that he was, told him to get the F out at the restaurant and to never come back again or else he would call the cops. Jack lost his job because of this, but to me, he was just looking out for me. I often cried when Jack lost his job because I know Kira and I would be working alone without anyone else there to protect us. But I never saw the man again after that. I quit my job at McDonald's, and so did Kira. Me, Jack, and Kira now live in the same apartment building and work at a grocery store. I don't know what could have happened to me if I took out the trash that night and not Jack. I'm just happy I never get to see that creep again. He was still outside waiting for me. So it's been 2 years since I posted on here about my last McDonald's story, and I didn't think it would get as much attention. I've been absent from here for a while because a lot of crap went down during that time period, and I think this will creep everyone out even more, so here we go. Ever since my now fiance Jack got fired from McDonald's, me, him, and Kira went and transferred to a grocery store that actually got shut down due to its bankruptcy. We all stayed at that grocery store for 2 months, and then we had no choice but to go back to working at McDonald's. Yippee effing do, right? We all came to find out that the biatch manager got fired and was replaced with a brand new manager named Emma. I knew Emma because me and her used to work at the grocery store together until she left after me and my friends got there. Emma looks at me with a very worried expression on her face as she walked up to me and said, "Hey Monica, do you have a boyfriend?" I said, "No, why?" She says, "Oh, because this man has been calling this location for 2 months now asking about you." I tossed my purse on the ground in annoyance as Emma looked at me with a look of fear. I told her that man called this location multiple times and even asked if he could take me home, and that he's been stalking me ever since. It was summer of 16 and near August when Jack and I was working a night shift together, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., which I didn't mind working overtime with him anyways since it was just me, Jack, and a new cook named Brandon. All of a sudden, I see a truck pull up beside a restaurant and I immediately got sick to my stomach and I see the same man, bald, long, rusty beard, sandals, and clothes that had stains on them, walk back in. Emma, being concerned, stood around a corner, being unnoticeable as she overheard a conversation. The man smiles at me as he made his way to my register. He smiles and says, "Ah, you're back. Long time no see, Monica." I respond in a fake-ass happy tone. "It's nice to see you again as well. What can I get you tonight?" He looks at me dead in my soul and gives a wide grin and says, "A large French vanilla iced coffee with a Big Mac and a large fry, please." I typed in the order as I hear Brandon and Jack make small conversation in the back. I give the man his food and he looks back at me and says, "It's so good to see you're back. I'll be dropping by to visit you every day now." Jack had an annoyed look on his face as he pulls me to back while he went on our break and says to me, "I can't believe he's back. Why the F is he still coming here?" Brandon followed shortly behind as he said, "Who the F was that man?" I told him the full story as his face went pale and his jaw was dropped. After months of being harassed by this man, it wasn't until June of 2017 until all hell broke loose. Emma asked me to take out the trash and I was debating on not going because of what happened last time. Emma told me I didn't have to go if I didn't want to and she would let Brandon take it out. Brandon immediately said, "I'll take it out, don't worry." I felt bad because I could have taken out the trash myself, but I would get constant paranoia and gut feelings. Brandon comes back in as the clock said 3:40 a.m. No customers came in, and I decided to sit at a booth and take a break. I scrolled through my phone until I heard what sounded like someone coming to the door. At this point, I was like, here we effing go, until I saw that truck again. I rolled my eyes and yelled for Jack, and Jack decided to switch positions with me as I went to be at a drive-through window. All of a sudden, the man starts attacking Jack as Emma came out and broke the fight up. What this man said to me will forever haunt me. He yells, "Monica, if you ever leave this destination again, I will find you and kill everyone you love." Brandon's eyes widen as he looks back at the man and back at me with a holy crap expression on his face. Jack has told this man many times to leave me alone, and me and Jack dated for a year, and he's always been there for me and the other workers, looking out for everyone. As for that, Jack got rewarded management position, and I couldn't be more happy because he deserved it. It's now March of 2018, and I can finally say the man that harassed me for almost 2 years now is finally in prison for aggravated assault. He was wanted in another county for brutally mutilating a 17-year-old girl, animal abuse, and domestic violence of his ex-wife and daughter. I hope that effing creep stays in prison for the rest of his miserable life. I hope he never gets parole and he rots in heck. The finale too. He was outside waiting for me. Please take the final paragraph into consideration, as you never know what the heck goes on. Hi everyone, it's been some time since I've been here. I haven't done a part 3 yet because 1, this dude's trial was a long one. 2, the updates I'm about to share are gonna piss people like myself off. And 3, some a-hole hacked my account and wrote some bullcrap part 3, which wasn't even true. So I had to change my passwords and everything to prevent it from happening again. So without further blabbing, let's get into what really happened. Oh, and if you're new here, my name is Monica, and I have 2 other stories on my Reddit page. Reading this will leave you completely lost, so if you want to catch up on the tea, I'll link those 2 stories down below. So where the F do I begin with this story? So as you all probably know by now, the creep that has been stalking me outside of McDonald's got arrested and put in prison for his charges against mutilating a 17-year-old girl, animal abuse, and domestic abuse against his ex-wife and daughter. Well, sad to tell everyone, but the effer had to go to trial, and I had to testify against him many times in 2018. The trial was long. When I say long, it felt like we were at the courthouse for 20 years and counting. In April of 2018, I was asked by my fiancé Jack's attorney to testify against Mr. Bald Long Rusty Beard. Knots in my stomach were forming as I was sweating to death, feeling like it was day's end. I remember nodding my head, agreeing to testify on my behalf of everything that had happened. Jack, being the best, was my emotional support throughout this process. He knew it was hard for me to go through this, but I wanted to be also the voice of the unspoken victims this man tortured. May 2018, so court comes along and I was sitting behind this guy's ex-wife and daughter. The scars on both of their faces and seeing the mother in crutches and the leg cast broke my heart and made me want this effort to get a life sentence for what he has done to his victims. I sit in the courtroom as I see him enter. That feeling of sickness and disgust rushed through my body like no other. I felt like I was gonna get sick again. This effer was sitting a few feet away from me and I wanted to wrap my hands around his neck and strangle him, but I kept calm, but I made sure to keep my eyes on him. As I knew, he felt my existence burning in the back of his skull. His defense team went on to say my client did no such crimes. He did not mutilate 17-year-old insert's name, and he did not beat his ex-wife and daughter. So you mean to tell me that 17-year-old mutilated herself, and his ex-wife and daughter beat their own asses? Effing dumb crap. Anyway, after 3 hours, the judge claims the final verdict get reached in January 2019. June 2018, I finally take the stand and give my side of events that occurred with this man. I sit there, and when I look at him, he's giving me that look of hatred, and he looked like he wanted to kill me, to say the least. The plaintiff, who was the 17-year-old girl's mom, was also there. You can just tell she was broken, losing her only daughter to this monster of a man. In that moment, I needed to also be that girl's voice. Because of what I've heard from the mom, this man pretended to be a 19-year-old boy and preyed on her only to end her life a week before her 18th birthday. This made me effing sick to my goddamn stomach. The attorney who was also there interrogated me to tell my side, so I did. I told him he was stalking me. He was making direct threats to me. He would harass me at work over the phone, pretty much telling my whole truth of events. Again, 3 hours later, we had to go back in August. I remember getting home after the second go-around of the trial and having a bad feeling that some crap was gonna pop the F off at the end of the trial. I remember looking through all my documented evidence, such as journal entries, the security footage that my manager emailed to me in case I needed it, the dream journals I kept writing about how this man haunted me in my dreams, all that stuff. Jack sat next to me when I was sitting in the dining room, bawling my eyes out, just squeezing my hand, telling me we'll get through this together. We always have and we always will. I kissed his cheek and hugged him tightly as I remember going to bed and just feeling paranoid as F about what the final verdict would be in January of 2019. August 2018, we didn't go to trial in July due to many delays on Mr. Creep Ass's end, but again we go to court and what the F happens? You guessed it, more proof, more like fabricated bullcrap on his end and that he's innocent when he really isn't. The trial starts and I just remember feeling washed over with the same fear and sickness when I was looking at him from afar. His hair was falling out, he was getting slimmer, and he continued to play the victim card. Poof, you ain't the victim, pal. I remember being called to the stand again and to give my side of events again, and I remember the dark butterfly feeling coming back, the same one that I had when I first took the stand. The defense team on his end came back and said objection to all my claims, something that hasn't happened since now. I glared over to him and his defense team giving the don't you effing discredit me look. The judge silenced them and allowed me to continue, again saying the same crap, stalked, harassed, and all that other crap, also presenting the journal entries and the security footage from McDonald's. 2 hours later, after everyone testifying and hearing useless defenses on his side, the judge declares we come back in December. I remember having that feeling again. During October and November, I was having a hard time, especially knowing I was planning my wedding and having a stressful time wondering about the final verdict. Me and Jack had to push back our wedding so much because he was concerned about the final verdict as much as I was. Me and him didn't want to go on to getting married until we knew Mr. Stank-Ass was going to get life in prison. December 2018, the month where we are 1 month away from knowing the final verdict. Now the mom of the 17-year-old was taking the stand and testifying, and her testimony broke my heart. I won't say what was said as it's graphic and very emotional and want to leave that out for respect of her, but as soon as she was done, Mr. Stalker Killer's defense team came in and gave one heck of an F in defense. Made me wonder what the F made them think of that. The defense was my client has a history of mental illness and has been on medication for it, and he was in recovery and had no idea what he was doing. He says it wasn't his intention to hurt anyone, as it was an accident and an act of self-defense. Besides, there's no evidence to prove that he did anything to anyone. Self-defense, my effing white cracker ass. Hearing this made me sick to my effing stomach even more. I had to step out when the judge called for a break. I remember feeling my chest getting so heavy to where I nearly puked all over the place. We go back in an hour later. The judge declares we come back the first week of January to disclose the final verdict. January 2019. Get ready to throw your computer or your phone out a window or at a wall, because this is going to be the most effed up crap you will ever hear. Final day of Mrs. Stank-Ass's trial. After what feels like an eternity, we are finally hearing the verdict. The grand jury was sitting there, and well, it's time to hear the verdict. After seeing a dumb F sit down, I immediately got the feeling that this was going to take a turn. It took the jury 3 hours to deliberate the fate of this creep's life. The judge goes over the other stuff as he said something that made my stomach turn. Well, it seems that there is no strong evidence to claim that this man murdered this 17-year-old girl. The jury comes with a verdict and claims him not guilty. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Creep-Ass was pleaded not guilty. The outburst from the mother was heartbreaking. She was screaming and crying like no other. The ex-wife and daughter of this dumb F was also in tears, knowing that this was not justice for anyone. This effer also took a plea deal. He had to plead guilty to domestic violence, and he had to register as a sex offender. He got no probation, but he did get house arrest for 5 years, and after 5 years, he needed to go through court-ordered therapy. Shows you how crappy police work is done here and how effed up the court systems are. Not gonna lie, this trial reminded me of Casey Anthony's trial. Who the F gets away with murder like that? I was so pissed after that, I stormed out of the courtroom, went to the bathroom, and puked. The thought of knowing this guy was not going to jail and his defense team took one hell of a shot at making this man get his way is disgusting. I can also see the comments on this post, this ain't real, this is a joke, what the F. Let me just say this, Rhonda Castro's killer is free, Kaylee Anthony's killer is free, Lauren Agee's killers are free, Elisa Turner's killer is free, So many misjustices happen all the time, and this is one of them. A lot of them don't even get news coverage, like this crap got zero news coverage. Still pissed over that, but I will still advocate for the voices that aren't with us anymore, because no matter what the F happens, everyone deserves justice for something traumatic that has happened to them. I want people to know this. Whatever you think is bullcrap from this is real to me, because I went through this and it puts a lot of stress on me and caused me to be diagnosed with severe depression and major anxiety, which I'm on meds for. Please be careful and please pray for the victims in this whole situation. As for the F-bag that ruined so many lives and nearly ruined mine, I wish you a miserable, lonely life, and I hope one day you F up and get sent to prison forever. Link to Story 1. Link to Story 2.